This one will become window trim. That should do it. They're nice and dry from the sticker stacks, and they're fairly flat. I'll either make tongue and groove or shiplap. I haven't decided yet. I decided to go with shiplap. Shiplap is a lot faster to cut, just cutting a groove on both sides of the boards, and they'll just overlap a little bit. I decided to go with shiplap because it's quicker and easier. I prefer tongue and groove because it literally locks the edges of the boards together. You can see these T&G boards here. This wall is going to be nearly covered with cabinetry. There will be a shower there, upper or lower and upper cabinets here, a wall in here someplace between the bathroom and the kitchen. Then there will be cabinets from that wall all the way under the window here to this window. There'll be a stove here where the sign is. I want a sink under the window here so that when I'm doing dishes I get to watch this view. And I got to thinking about the extra time for manufacturing and installing the tongue and groove, and while I prefer it, I'm not going to be able to see it. This wall is going to be so covered, it didn't make sense to me to go to the extra trouble for tongue and groove, so I'm just going with shiplap. I have a collection of spacers from old projects that I keep on the back side of my cutting bench, and I found one that will give me about the right setback that I need for shiplap. When I bench a board with my spacer in between it and the cutting bench fence here, it puts me out that far from the fence, and I put my straight edge over all of it, and this distance that's left between the straight edge and the edge of the board is the distance from this edge to where I'll get about a 5/8 of an inch cut with the router bit. So it's good enough. Clamp and cut. I usually get a pretty nice cut. With the simple cut for a lap type joint, I can still make use of open knots along the edge of a board by first rasping them down flat to the board surface. The knots play into the rustic character that I'm after. I make use of rougher material for shiplap joints than I would for tongue and groove. I slow way down to cut through knots. When a router is cutting, the blade is spinning clockwise. So it's turning this way. If you're pushing it this direction, you might expect it to splinter out. And it does. Sometimes it can be a real mess. If you're pulling the router this way, it'll cut much cleaner, but it's also much harder to control because the bit wants to dig in and grab traction, and it jerks, it tries to pull out of your hands. One way to mitigate a pull cut so that a router can't get away from you is to just put in an intermediate spacer so that you're not cutting out as much material at once. No splintering. When I'm doing hundreds or thousands of feet of routing, every little thing I do like that adds a lot of time. So I've just started walking the router down, not taking out the whole cut with a pull cut, moving right to left, and then I'll go back and follow up with a push cut to get my nice clean edge here. This time I'll walk the router down in a pull cut right to left and just take out most of the material and not worry about staying close to my straight edge here. You can see it's a little wavy. Took out about 2/3 of the material in a real wavy cut. With the 2 passes, I get a nice clean cut. Lumber graders allow bark voids on one side of select and number 2 grade lumber. One advantage of shiplap is that you can usually still use the whole board. You can't get away with that when you're making tongue and groove. Most of the chipping on the inside of the joint can still be used because it goes up against the wall. A few of these planks have quite a bit of crook in them. You can see that I'm tied at both ends. But here in the middle, there's a good 3/8 of an inch crook. Whereas these are going to be used in shiplap, it's not a big deal. If it was tongue and groove, I would be straightening these boards out before I milled them into T&G. When they have that much wow in them, I label them. I put a W for wow or warp or whoopsie. One thing I can do is just use these crooked boards for butt ends. There'll be several places where I just need 2 or 4 foot sections, and this will be pretty insignificant then. And there's other ways to use the whole plank. I'll show you when I'm installing. This is my sanding station with a high efficiency air exchange ventilation system, especially when there is a breeze. I use the most aggressive abrasives that I can get for my sanders, usually 24 to 40 grit. I can get away with that using this belt sander as long as I keep it pointed downstream with the wood grain. I slap the boards down to dust them. I bought this old sander used back in the mid 1980s. I was sitting in a bar drinking a beer, and a guy came in and literally had this under his coat. I bought it from him for $25, which was money back then. After I paid him, he bought me a beer. Pretty good deal. And I've gotten a lot of miles out of this old sander since then. You can see how this chamber plugs with sawdust. The belt turns this way, and it's supposed to pull air up into this fan, and the fan is supposed to shoot the air out that way. Well, when the bag stops filling with sawdust and the motor starts getting warm, I know that I need to clean this chamber. It's just a design flaw. Other than that, it's been a good old machine. The only things that I've replaced is the bag. It was duct tape patchwork for a long time, and I broke down and bought a new one. And I replaced the stainless steel plate here. And I think that's about it. I remember I added something else under the plate the last time I put it in. This one's starting to wear out, but it's got a lot of life in it. I get probably 10 or 15 planks per belt. These are a good belt. I don't know the brand, but they're made in the United States. And they're not directional. You can put them on either direction. It's a little different. These fine threaded screws don't need to be torqued very tight at all. I've never had one loosen up. That's it. Ready to go back to it. This is my dust management system. This is one of the borates that I use as a fungicide to treat my wood with. It's disodium octaborate tetrahydrate. And that long name is usually abbreviated as DOT. And I mix it at about 10%. 1 part salt to 10 parts water. I run the random orbital sander over the back sides of these boards too, just to break up the surface so that my borates can penetrate the wood. And after I do the back sides, I'll flip them over and do the finished sides. I just want to stop all that wood fungus growth. By the way, if you have any questions about whether or not the borates are a good herbicide, plant killer, fungicide, all that, just look up pictures of borax mines or storage facilities, and you'll see that there's no plant life in the entire area. They look like a moonscape or something, just plantless, kind of gray and stark. Spraying the top sides of the planks now, killing all the fungus that wants to turn my boards black and blue. I'll let them dry overnight and then I can put my final finish on them. I'll be using an oil-based varnish for the final finish. Good morning. The planks are all stained up and stickered. They've been out in the air overnight, so they're aired out and I can start taking them inside now. I like the way the wood fungus comes into play and adds colors. I just like being in this environment. I guess that's why I do this kind of work. As the material goes inside, it'll set on this bench and be cut to length. I'll have my saw set up right here. This is the first course. These pieces are already cut to length and stained, ready to go up. So I'll go ahead and put those in place now. I've been using 1 3/4 inch nails for these wall boards. And they're just 14 gauge. Don't need to be anything too heavy to hold boards on the wall. I actually use the same thing on the floor too. I started nailing this first board on the left end here, and it's down snug to the floor the way I want it. This end, the floor and the board aren't coming up to each other. There's a gap there, and you can see how this board is nearly 1/2 inch higher. So I need to adjust it a little bit. With the adjuster in place, I'll see if I can't bend this board to where this is a tighter fit. Actually, I think I'll get this one out of the way. That's more like what I want. See how the board's down against the floor now. When I've just bent a board like this using an adjuster, I like to leave the adjuster in place to let the wood fibers get used to its new position. If I just put some of these light finish nails in here now and release this, the board will just tear through the nails. I'll go work from the other end and come this direction. By the time I get here, it'll be ready for me to take this off and start the next course. The first board on the other end is doing something similar. I nailed it at that end tight to the floor. And when I look at it here, it's up off the floor 5/8 of an inch. And this one has the added challenge in that it's twisted this way. The board's tied up here, but it's away from the wall here. So I need both straighten the board out this way and push it down and nail it off. That took care of the twist. Now I need to push it down, fill this gap. This board is nailed at the other end, so we're going to kind of bend it and form it to fit the floor here. That's pretty close. That's it. Now I'm just going to leave this in place, let these wood fibers get used to its new position, and in the meantime I can go ahead and put some nails in it, but I won't release this until I'm comfortable that the board's going to stay there. I'm using some longer nails to hold the end of this board down. I don't want it pulling up off the floor. I was fortunate that I brought this board out to the edge of this stud. So I don't have to nail, I don't have to toe nail this, I don't have to nail out on the edge. I can come in here about there, and I'm going to put a lot more nails than I normally would. Normally I just put a couple nails in these 10-inch shiplap, but where I'm worried about this board springing back to its original shape, I'm tying it down a little more securely. Find my stud. And neither of these spots will be visible. There will be a stove right here, and so I'm not worried about some extra nails showing or anything. There will be a cabinet out to here, so I can nail away, and it's not a big issue. And I'm going to go have some lunch and let these boards settle into their new positions. It held okay. Broke the heads off those screws. Cheap screws. This one held too. board stayed tight against the floor. And it also, the twist also stayed out of it. We're up against the stud okay here. Need to cut a light box in this next board. To get the box height off the first row, I'll use one of my spacers and measure up from it to the bottom of the box. It's like 1.5 inches, so I know the top is 5.5. Put a couple marks. Just eyeball it for being parallel with the notch. Looks good. That ought to do it. About where you want it. I used my spacers to set this board down and tack it in place. There's another spacer down here. This board swoops up just way too loose for my spacers. And I've tried pushing down the best I can. Sometimes just body weight will do it, but I'm going to have to put an adjuster on this one. Close. Whoops, a little too much. That's good enough. A basic goal with installing shiplap is to keep these seams uniform along the lines. It just looks amateurish if these seams between the boards are different spaces in different places. It's a nice clean professional look is when these are all even. And it takes just a little more time, but the end result's much nicer. For a jigsaw plunge cut, I want to position my blade anywhere in the waist area, give myself plenty of room. And the idea is to pivot on the front of the saw. You want to use the front of the saw as a hinge. And with a circular saw, that's all you need to do really. Just get your blade over the line and cut straight down. With the jigsaw, you want to pivot down and move the saw forward a little bit as it's coming down so that the teeth will engage with the wood and not just the tip. So we'll start like this. this last row had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outlet boxes in it. Should move along a little faster now that I'm above those. Those are the outlets that will be just above the counter spaces in the kitchen and the bathroom. The last plank under my loft that'll fill this gap is about 1/2 inch wider than these 1x10 planks. So I'm ripping a 1x12 down to fill this gap from about here to that end. It tapers 1/4 inch. So I've set up my 1x12 with a straight edge, and I'll rip a taper in it, and then I'll cut the notch for the shiplap. I tend to favor these aluminum straps for my straight edges, just because they're so light and they stay straight. I want to cut about halfway through my board. About right there. Oops. The board keeps scooting away from me. I'll keep it. Now I'll probably use the table saw to cut the shiplap groove that way. Yeah, shiplap board. More than one way to skin a cat. Yeah, that looks better. This long here is a lot tighter. I can live with that. I'm treating and finishing these two boards that I custom cut to fit the top of the bathroom wall here. And I'm just using borax, the same stuff that you buy at the grocery store. It's a laundry detergent booster. It works just as well as DOT. It's a little more expensive, but it doesn't stay suspended in water as easy as the DOT does. So it tends to clog sprayers easier. But with a rag, there's no problem. I do both sides of the board. I knocked this, I opened up the grain on this side, the back side of the board with my sander, just so that it would soak this borax in a little better. Set this out in the sun. And usually there's some white crystalline borax that it looks like grains of salt that crystallize and form on the outside of the board when this borax dries. It's easy to wipe off. It's not a big deal. Just wipe it off where you don't want any plants growing. I'll let this dry overnight and then I can put my stain on it tomorrow. That'll do. I'll just let these dry out here in the sun. And tomorrow I'll put some oil on them, some finish. This borax has had a chance to dry. And you can see how sometimes it leaves little fine grains, little crystals. Not a big deal. Probably a little more wasteful than DOT. When I come out here in the light, I see light spots better than I do in the shade. Mark my window here. I like these big fat pencils. That's a regular pencil. This is one that I picked up in one of the big box stores. I want this top plank tied against my loft ledger here. Got a little gap. Yeah, that looks better along here. Getting a starter stick set across the top of the loft floor. Just getting it started. Then the floor will actually sit up about this high. This plank has the usual crook in it. See if we can't get it to sit down where it belongs. Let me nail it. Yeah. Clamp is pulling it down in place. That looks better. I'm hoping this will help line up that top row. Marking where I want the top of the next row so that the last piece will be parallel with the ceiling. I'll cut a board the same width as this to put right here. Should simplify the cut for me. There we go. I'm installing right to my magic marker line there. I'm making a test fit piece for the last row that goes up right to the ceiling. There. Snug fit into the ceiling. That's what I was looking for. I'll look from the other end. I won't have to use any trim on the wall to ceiling contact. And that's the way I've been doing the other walls. I went ahead and wrapped the windows using the crooked boards that I pulled out of the shiplap cut stack. Notice that the new wall to floor and ceiling contacts don't require any baseboard or trim. The transitions are finished. Thanks for watching.